Thank you very much, Stephen. I hope you give me a 5-minute warning and
I will be happy to.
7-minute warning because I'm not looking at any time here. Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody, and especially to Long for steering this report through so many of us. It's a remarkable achievement, and looking at the final product now makes me feel proud to be part of it. Now, you heard about some general problems, difficulties that Ben just described with the value of data and long summary. I'm going to switch topics a little bit and talk to you about search economics and the value of data in that framework. Now, I did learn a lot about value of data and other aspects of data from the report, but what's more maybe surprising or enlightening, it made me go back to my previous writings on search, and I looked at it from a different, probably new perspective in terms of value of data, and that's what I'm going to talk about. Now, search economics, as many of you will be familiar, we could say, without exaggeration, I guess, that it was founded on imperfect information, and the seminal piece of work that launched it was the 1970 Phelps volume, which has several papers on the imperfect behavior under imperfect information in labor markets, output markets, and various other things. And then there is a nice introduction by Ned Phelps to that volume, which says that let's move away, that the small cost of information and information imperfections make people decide in a way that takes us away from Walrasian economics and the law of one price. And in fact, following that volume, elaborate models were developed of consumers searching over prices, workers searching over wage offers. And the objective at that time was to confirm more or less what Phelps was saying, and Stigler, we should be mentioned actually here as well, that under imperfect information and data that didn't tell you everything you wanted to know about products, locations, and so on, you get the law of one price breaks down, and you get a distribution of prices, both in output and labor markets. Well, when the Phelps volume came out, I was finishing my undergraduate studies in Britain at the University of Essex, in fact, when several people interested in imperfect information were there, including Bob Clower, who was a big influence. And then I thought, this is a good topic for a PhD. But then I soon realized that a lot of the exercises that were done at the time to look for price distributions were perhaps not the most interesting from the information point of view. I thought what was more interesting, especially in labor markets, was the heterogeneity of products or jobs and workers. In fact, Michael Spence hinted at that in his intervention, that jobs have many, many different attributes that are even very difficult to describe unless you experience them. And workers have many different skills, very niche kind of skills that can be applied to different jobs. And most of the search for a job, being a young graduate student at that time, I could tell from personal experience that what I cared about very much wasn't the wage. If I did, I wouldn't have gone into British academia. It was more like, I would have gone just 1 mile down the road to the city of London and worked for a bank. It's more what type of job am I going to get, and is going to give me the job satisfaction. So then
5 minutes, Chris, 5 minutes.
Okay, I meant give me a 5-minute warning in the sense of 3 minutes left. For a moment, I thought I only had 3 minutes left. Okay, thank you.
I follow directions, Chris.
Yeah, no, it's my fault. I didn't express it very clearly. Thank you very much. Anyway, now the idea here then of search is that there are different types of jobs. So a worker cares about things beyond. It looks for a job and then takes the job that satisfies the minimum requirements that worker might put in whatever job he or she wants to have. Now, this is exactly where the value of data comes in. Before the internet, when you are looking for these jobs, what you would do would be to go in your local market, see what jobs are available. In fact, at the time, and this was made in the 1980s, so just before the internet came on, I tried to read some literature about how people find their jobs, and in Britain at least, how the unemployed find their jobs actually. And in Britain at least, the biggest source of job information was the pub. Because if you were unemployed, you went to the pub to have a beer with your friends, to forget this misfortune you had of unemployment. You talked about jobs. And in fact, that provided more than 50% of job matches were based on information given in the pub. Now, as you can imagine, the value of information in the pub is valuable as it was to those taking it. It wasn't exactly one that matched skills with requirements of the job. Now, and therefore, there were many mismatches at the time, and the mismatches led to a lot of turnover of jobs. And in the theory, when we wanted to express that, we would draw what's known as the Beveridge curve. It gives you the points of equilibrium of a labor market equilibrium. It's a locus of points, of equilibrium points, and it shows you the relation between unemployment and vacancies that coexist in equilibrium. And the distance, as it were, of the Beveridge curve from the axis, from the origin, shows the extent of mismatch, what we lose by not having enough information. Now, the internet comes along, search becomes easier, but there are still many mismatches because the cost of search over the internet is high. There is a lot of difficulty in describing jobs and people. So in the beginning, at least in the 1990s, when the sites for job search were first made it onto the internet, there wasn't much change in the Beveridge curve. You can go to Rob Scheimer's website, actually, where the first thing you see is the Beveridge curve, and you'll see that the Beveridge curve didn't shift very much when the internet first came along. Now, suppose though now, instead of just firms saying, I have a job, just declaring what job vacancies they have, I write, as a job applicant, I write my history of jobs on the internet. Firms write their history. I write what I like to do, what qualifications I had, formal and informal, describe in many ways what I did, and the company—
2 minutes, Chris.
Their mission, what workers they have, what kind of history they've had in terms of investments and so on, then that immediately gives you a lot more information, and that would improve the matching. I have to say, we still don't know how to describe, how to present this as good data as possible, and there are still mismatches, there are still jobs that are taken without with such insufficient information that they're given up after a while because they don't satisfy either side. But there has been an improvement. Now, what this information does is that it narrows down my search domain, where I'm searching. Therefore, it cuts down the cost of search. Job satisfaction should improve. In other words, my reservations of what's minimum acceptable rise. I get what looks like a better job to me. As a result, I'm less likely to quit. And the firm is more likely to want to keep that worker, me, or whatever. And what's the implication of that for the labor market equilibrium? Well, if you look at it as a Beveridge curve equilibrium, the coexistence of vacancies and unemployment, we should be observing less unemployment for any given quantity of vacancies in the market. In other words, the Beveridge curve should shift in. And we have been observing that to a large extent. The level of unemployment as a result in equilibrium should be lower. The natural rate of unemployment should be falling. And again, it has been falling. And you need a lot more to prove that that's why it's due to the data, but at least the trends are going in that right direction. There should be less duration of search because I narrow down my search, and therefore I find a job quickly. That's especially true of young people, who are the ones who do the job shopping in the absence of information. That all that job turnover and job shopping by young people should go down. That's something that, as far as I know, it hasn't been tested very well, although on average job turnover is going down, but there are many factors that are mentioned as the causes behind that, and that's both in the United States and other countries. And
I assume you'll be wrapping up now, Chris?
Yes, and one final thing, which is so difficult, I don't know the answer, so very quick. What's the value of data and all that? Well, there you've already heard Ben saying how difficult it is to measure it. I mean, just think of the value of data. It's virtually impossible to measure that value. First of all, we have the extra output that is due to better matches. Matches are more productive. Second, we have the lower unemployment. So unemployment is very costly to people, as we know. There is a fiscal cost for unemployment benefit that should be added onto the value of output. Then we have the lower turnover of labor within the firm. The cost of turnover is high, as we know, at least positive. And if that's reduced, that is value of output. By the time we calculate all those things and add them all up, you need enormous resources. But my feeling is that it's more than what we think. And in fact, it would be good for a graduate student to start measuring that, taking one thing at a time. You know, for example, measure by how much job mismatch has fallen and how much output have we gained because of that. And then take one step at a time just to give us an idea of how valuable data is or are. Thank you very much, Steve. I stop here. I don't know if I've done my 8 minutes or what, but